With only 3 races to go before the playoffs, we're starting to get a pretty good idea of what this picture may look like. How's it going, everybody? My name is Eric. Welcome to this week's episode of Out of the Groove. Like I said, only 3 races to go before the playoffs. Panic mode, guys! Well, at least panic mode for some of these guys. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. I know I had a really long episode last week. In fact, the last two episodes have been pretty long, but I still have some stuff left over to talk about. One thing I do think it's worth noting, guys, is when I film these episodes, it's usually Wednesday afternoon, and the episodes are then released Thursday around midday, around lunchtime, for people in America here. So I often get people pointing things out like, why didn't you talk about this? Why didn't you talk about that? And I'm like, whoa, guys, that was either announced Wednesday night or Thursday morning, so I did not have a chance to talk about it. But I'm going to try and talk about some stuff that I missed last week today. Just want to let you guys know I'm not just intentionally leaving things out. The big thing a lot of you guys commented on last week was what I thought of the new Camaro that Chevrolet is introducing to the Cup Series starting next season. The Camaro ZL1. And I guess I can throw up an image right there. I haven't really been showing pictures on the show very much. I've gotten lazy last couple months. But yeah, you can get a look at it there. My first immediate reaction is, looks cool. I mean, to be honest, all the Gen 6 cars have looked pretty cool to this point. That's part of why the Gen 6 cars, I think, is one of the greatest things NASCAR has changed over the last few years. And I talked about this, I don't know if I talked about this on this show, or if it was during a live stream or something, but you know, when I walk around or when I drive around town, I see plenty of Toyota Camrys, I see plenty of Ford Fusions, but I never saw the Chevy SS. And it got me thinking, is that even a real car, or is that just like a generic looking car that they made mainly just for NASCAR? I was so confused. Because I never saw them out on the road, so clearly if they did actually exist as real cars, they must not have sold very well. Hence why Chevy is ultimately changing to Camaro, which I see plenty of Camaros out there all the time. Anyway, not a lot else to really say about that, it just looked cool. Another big thing that was talked about last week, I just want to hit on it briefly. I didn't talk about it in the show, I tweeted about it a little bit. I think I talked about some on during some live streams last week, but I have not talked about it on Out of the Groove. I'm just going to hit on it briefly because a lot of you guys probably have heard enough people's opinions about it. Kevin Harvick last weekend on a radio show, on his radio show, I don't know whose radio show, on a radio show, came out and the topic switched to NASCAR's growth, and then it switched to Dale Earnhardt Jr. and his career stats, I guess, and Kevin Harvick basically came out and had some interesting things to say about how he feels Dale Jr. has helped or hurt NASCAR's growth, I guess. The exact quote from Kevin Harvick was, "For me, I believe that Dale Jr. has had a big part in kind of stunting the growth of NASCAR because he's got these legions of fans and this huge outreach of being able to reach different places that none of us have the possibility to reach, but he's won 9 races in 10 years at Hendrick Motorsports and hasn't been able to reach outside of that." Now he went on to say some other things, you know, it's not personal, I guess, he's trying to, but he was basically just pointing out that in other sports, the most popular athletes are typically the best athletes, or at least one of the best athletes. And Kevin Harvick's point is that Dale Earnhardt Jr. in his now pretty long Cup career, he's driven for a couple of really good teams and presumably very good race cars. He's only won 9 races the last 10 years. He's never won a championship. He's got some Daytona 500s, which are definitely his career highlights. That's why at Daytona a couple months ago, it was such a big deal. But his point was that Dale Earnhardt Jr. has not been the best driver. The best drivers like Jimmy Johnson, Tony Stewart, Jeff Gordon have been popular, but have never been as popular as Dale Earnhardt Jr. And he thinks that has hurt the growth of NASCAR. Those are his opinions, not necessarily my opinions. Let me just talk about them real quick. On the surface, I have to say, he's not entirely wrong about the fact that Dale Earnhardt Jr. has not been super successful, especially if you look at the last 10 years like he highlights. 9 wins in 10 years at Hendrick Motorsports is not something to really be super thrilled about. So, well, yeah, Kevin Harvick is not wrong. All of us have to completely agree there that Dale Earnhardt Jr. has not been anywhere near the best driver in NASCAR in his career. He's been good. I would say Dale Jr. is a good driver. I would say of all the drivers in the series right now, he's probably top 10, maybe top 12 most talented drivers. But he's not the best, and honestly, he never has been. The stats back me up on that. And that's something I think even big Junior fans, I like Junior, I'm a Junior fan, I like to root for him. I think all of us need to be able to see that and acknowledge that as the truth. But the thing I do not agree with Kevin Harvick at all is the idea that Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s lack of major success has hurt NASCAR's popularity. Or as he puts it, stunted the growth. I don't know, that seems like a little bit of a reach to me. Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s won the NASCAR Most Popular Driver Award for 14, 15 years in a row, something like that, and he'd probably keep winning it for years to come if he kept racing. So the way it looks is, even though Dale Jr. is not the best driver, never has been the best driver, he's still managed to hold on to this major nation worth of a fan base. And I think that says a lot about Dale Jr. as a person, his personality, his just ability to come across as just a a good person, a good guy that people like to root for. And that's the thing I like about NASCAR more than just about any other sports. You don't hear about that many NASCAR drivers, getting arrested for assault, or that many NASCAR drivers getting arrested for these really stupid stuff. Football, basketball, even baseball, sometimes you get athletes getting arrested all the time. NASCAR drivers, you get the impression that the majority of them are generally good people. And I think Dale Earnhardt Jr. has had one of the most likable personalities. He's probably one of the most likable guys in the garage area, and he's been that way his whole career. I think that's why he's so popular. And for Kevin Harvick to act like that is a bad thing, or that isn't enough, I don't think he has a great point there. Sure, if Dale Earnhardt Jr. had won maybe a couple championships, maybe won some more races, maybe NASCAR would be a tiny bit more popular. Maybe he would have a tiny bit more fans. But honestly, I think his fans, he's been good. Like I said, I don't want to say he's been bad. He's not been the best, but he has still been good in his career. Dale Jr., he makes the playoffs most years. He's been good. I don't think that his fan base would really get any bigger. I'm not really sure what I'm trying to say. That's part of why I didn't talk about this last week, because I knew last week's episode was going to be long anyways. I didn't want to add all this rambling on top of it. But I think Dale Jr.'s popularity says more about guys like Jimmy Johnson, or like Kevin Harvick himself, or Keselowski, or Logano, or some of these other veterans who've been around close to or around as long as Jr. has and don't have nearly as many fans as he does. I think in a way it says more about them. What are they doing wrong so that they've won more races than Jr. They've won more championships than Jr., but they don't have his level of fan base. And I know what you guys are going to say. Dale Jr.'s popularity mainly stems from he's an Earnhardt, and everyone loved his dad because his dad is one of the greatest to race in NASCAR ever. And I know that definitely got him his start, but Jr., it's been 15, 16 years since that Daytona 500 in 2001, and Dale Jr. is still the most popular driver in NASCAR. You'd think if Dale Jr. wasn't as likable or as successful as he'd been, he wouldn't have held on to all those fans all these years. So I think it says more about the lack of the ability of guys like Kevin Harvick to get major fans than it does about Jr. hurting the growth of NASCAR. This is a hard topic to talk about because it's all very hypothetical. We can't go back in history and say, what if Dale Jr. won the 2004 championship? Would NASCAR still be as popular today as it was then? We have no way of knowing. I tend to think it doesn't really matter. Ultimately, I think the reason NASCAR is not as popular as sports like baseball, basketball, football is because anyone in any town can pick up a football, play catch, can pick up a baseball and a glove, a bat maybe, hit baseballs. Anyone can find a basketball court anywhere. They're easy to make. They're all over the country. You can shoot baskets. They're easy. Soccer, all you need is a ball and some stuff to mark a goal down. You can kick a soccer ball around. These sports are super accessible, whereas NASCAR, let's face it guys, if you want to get into auto racing, you need a lot of money, you need a big fast race car, you need to know how to work on it, you need to be, it's a very niche audience that's really able to get into NASCAR. It's not just a type of sport that anyone can do at any time. I would have loved to race cars as a kid, or even now, but my family, we didn't have the money to just throw at that willy-nilly. We didn't have the time. We didn't have the accessibility. I don't know of any racetracks near my house, so I could never really love racing to the same extent some of these NASCAR drivers do. Honestly, it's a miracle there's so many NASCAR fans out there, to be honest. I think if we're going to talk about what's kind of hurt NASCAR's growth, it's not the people involved. I think they've all done a spectacular job of holding the entire weight of the series on their shoulders and supporting it all these years. I think we just look at how accessible it is. It's, like I just said, it's not as accessible to the average public as baseball or football or basketball. Anyone can play those. Anyone can grow up playing those. Not anyone can grow up racing race cars. Very few people are lucky enough to get to do something like that. Anyway, I hope that kind of makes sense. I hope I kind of made a point. I gotta move on. I don't want this to be a 20-minute episode. By the way, guys, there was a race this last week, and I haven't talked about it yet, but yes, Michigan. We were at Michigan International Speedway this last weekend for the race. And surprise, surprise, spoiler alert, Kyle Larson wins there again. Ever since he got his first career win at Michigan last season, he's won 3 straight. Is there any stopping him? It honestly did not look like that was going to happen for most of Sunday. Martin Truex Jr. was one of the best cars. Keselowski led early. Truex looked to be in position to win the race. Late race restarts and cautions shook everything up like crazy. Ultimately, Truex finished second. His teammate Eric Jones finished third. But it was Kyle Larson who took advantage of fresh tires and other people spinning their tires on the final restart to get the win. So goody good for Kyle Larson. He needed something to go his way because he had not been running quite as well the last few weeks. Martin Truex Jr., however, did win another stage. He continues to have a major points lead. Chances of him winning the regular season points title and getting the top 15, I guess 15 bonus points you get for leading the points at the end of the regular season. Truex is going to have like 50-something points at the end of this regular season. It's going to be ridiculous. I think, honestly, we haven't seen how this format's going to work in the playoffs yet the last few years, but it seems almost like Truex is a lock to make it to Homestead already. He's got so many bonus points. Anyway, aside from that, a big storyline was the playoff bubble and how that was going to shake up this weekend. Drivers like Chase Elliott, Matt Kenseth, a couple people right there on the bubble, Joey Logano, you know, very historically have been good at Michigan, you know, so a lot of people had their eyes on them, and at least for a couple of it did not go great. In general, actually, it was a tough day for several bubble drivers. Joey Logano started second, but he had a tire issue at one point and fell back, finished 28th, still lost points to the bubble. He's still basically win or he's out, so I guess that doesn't really change, but man, they've still built no momentum for them heading into these final 3 races. Clint Bowyer had a rough day. He finished 23rd, so he also was not able to really make any progress on the bubble on the 16th spot. And then speaking of that 16th spot, Matt Kenseth looked like he was going to have a pretty good day. Toyota ran all right most of the day. Matt Kenseth spent most of the day in the top 5, top 10. Final restart. He, unfortunately, fell way back, did not get a good restart, hit the wall. He finished 24th, so Matt Kenseth ultimately did not lose any spots, I guess, or any real ground to Clint Bowyer. He's still 31 points ahead of 17th place Clint Bowyer, but he did lose some spots, or lose some points, I should say, to Chase Elliott and Jamie McMurray, who both had pretty decent days. Chase Elliott lurked around the top 5, top 10 most of the day. He finished 8th. So Chase Elliott currently 14th, 62 points ahead of the cutoff. Jamie McMurray is 15th. He's 52 points ahead of the cutoff, and Matt Kenseth, like I just said, is 31 points ahead of the cutoff. So going into Bristol this next week, then we have Darlington and Richmond. You know, we're starting to get a little bit more of an idea of who the favorites could be. If you ask me, I think Chase Elliott will make it in. I think 62 points is a pretty good number. I think that's, even with stage points and everything, that's pretty much a full race worth, like more than a full race worth of points. So I think he's in an okay position right now. I'd say the same about Jamie McMurray. He's been very consistent this year. You know, he's always lurking around 10th, 12th place. That's not going to be good enough when the chase and the playoffs actually roll around, but until then, I think he's in an okay spot. And honestly, if you ask me, I think the points are going to stay basically out there. I think at the end of these 3 races, I think Chase Elliott, Jamie McMurray, and Matt Kenseth will be the 3 drivers moving on. And it's unfortunate that the playoff system has to bring us to this end. Clint Bowyer is 10th in points if we just looked at overall points, but unfortunately it's looking like he could be the first guy out. And I have faith in Clint Bowyer, but the problem is if you look at these 3 tracks, Matt Kenseth, who currently holds that top spot, has been running better than any of those drivers I just listed for the last month. Not to mention he has wins at all the remaining 3 tracks, several wins at both Bristol and Richmond, so Matt Kenseth is, in my opinion, in a good position going forward. Obviously, Joey Logano's had success at these tracks as well, but that 22 team has just not been very good, so it's hard for me to really see Joey Logano's pure talent overcoming their poor race cars. So I'll get into Bristol race specific predictions in a moment, but if we're going to talk about the playoff bubble, my predictions for the next 3 weeks is that it's going to stay about how it is. I think Chase Elliott, Jamie McMurray have enough of a cushion, and I think Matt Kenseth has had enough success at these remaining 3 tracks. I think that team's been running well. I think they're going to be able to hold off Bowyer and Joey Logano, and I think Joey Logano, like I said, unless he gets a win, he is probably not going to be anywhere close to making it in at the end of this thing. As for some of those other drivers, Eric Jones finished 3rd at Michigan this last week, so he came close to winning a race and shaking this whole thing up. Daniel Suarez looked good at Watkins Glen a couple weeks ago. He could always sneak forward and shake this thing up, make it crazy. And we can't forget Dale Earnhardt Jr., some of those other guys further back in points that have won at these racetracks before, so it's going to be interesting to see how this shakes up, these final 3 races. But you've heard my picks for that. Here are my picks for Bristol. The night race at Bristol every August is usually my favorite race to watch as a fan. Bristol's just fun, and adding the night race effect so close to the playoffs, it's just always an exciting night. There's going to be some major names up there towards the front. I think all the Toyotas will be very tough to beat. I think Kyle Busch and Matt Kenseth specifically will be very tough to beat. I am picking Kyle Busch to win the race, but obviously we cannot rule out Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Larson, these other drivers Jimmy Johnson that have been really good all season long. They could have a good shot as well. Wouldn't be too surprising. Although Martin Truex Jr., we've never really seen him do much at Bristol. When we think Truex, we think him dominating mile and a half. We think him dominating basically everywhere, except a place like Bristol. I can't really picture him winning Bristol. I don't think he has any wins at Bristol in his career. I should probably look that up before I say that. Okay, good. I got that one right. He did not win. He's never won at Bristol. So we'll see how it goes. Might see some new faces up there towards the front. It's a different kind of racetrack. Might see some guys that we aren't used to seeing run up front. You never know. But I'm picking Kyle Busch. He's been really good at Bristol in his career. Gibbs cars have looked good, especially at short tracks. I think Kyle Busch gets it done. So yes, that is my show. I hope I covered most everything that people wanted to hear about. I didn't talk anything about silly season stuff because we haven't had that many reports since we announced Byron's going to the 5 and Case Kane's gone. Hasn't been a whole lot of stuff coming out since then, so hopefully the next few weeks are a little bit more exciting in that department. But until then, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. You can check out my social media links, Twitter, Snapchat, all that type of stuff in the description. I also, just 2 days ago, actually yesterday, I made a Cars 3 stop motion video, which I released, and I was very pleased with how it came out. I think most people who've seen it have enjoyed it, so you can also check that out. That's probably on the side, or you can go to my channel and check that out. I don't think I have a link for that, but there's that to check out, so I appreciate all the support, guys. Doubly Cup Series will be returning next week. It's just, summer's coming to an end. School's starting to pick back up. I'm going in and out of town a lot to pack things, load things up, get things figured out. Doubly Cup Series, I'm trying to keep uploading them at about every 2 weeks. It's probably going to be a little slower than that for the rest of the season because school is going to be starting and gotta maneuver that. But yeah, I have not forgotten about Doubly Cup Series. It will still be out very soon. So hope you guys look forward to that. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for all the support as always. Hope you have a great weekend. Hope you have a great week next week, and hope you have great everything. So that's all for me. See you later.